Dealing with a difficult client. As a professional land surveyor for many years, I've had hundreds of clients come through my doors and ask for help resolving their property disputes. And many of those people have been very cool, calm, collected. They've paid their bills on time. They've just been really pleasant people to work with. And, even after years or, decades have gone by, I still, really fondly remember these clients because their personalities and their stories have, stuck with me. The wedding planner in Walton Beach or the tree farmer in Middle Georgia. I mean, great people. And, it really does have fond memories of solving their property disputes and helping them, get through a very difficult part in their life, a major multi-$100,000 or multi-million-dollar dispute, and them walking away, not always with exactly what they wanted, but walking away happy and having the dispute resolved on their property. But, for every 10 great clients I've seen, there's always going to be one who is just difficult to work with. And you can't avoid these people because if you're a professional land surveyor, an engineer, an architect, there are going to be personalities which just conflict with your own. But just because you have a personality conflict or just because they're difficult to deal with doesn't mean you can simply, block their phone calls and disappear. Because the number one reason why many state boards bring actions against surveyors is because of either lack of communication or some type of billing or other type of administrative issue. So just because you're a good surveyor doesn't mean you can stay clear of the board, and also stay clear of your personal ethics, because treating people fairly is a central tenet of ethics and professional responsibility. So how do you deal with these difficult clients? Well, my first suggestion is to be completely open. If you feel like they're pushing you into a corner, they're treating you poorly, they're calling you too much, calling you at 2 a.m. or something ridiculous, then you need to talk to them about that. You need to establish ground rules. And you say, John, I love hearing from you and I appreciate you communicating so well, but I gave you my personal cell phone for emergencies or for business hours. Please do not call or text me except between the hours of 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. or whatever your office hours are. And if you are, if you're brave enough to look them in the eye or to call them and tell them this, a lot of times they'll respect you. So the number one, one of the most difficult clients is when they over communicate. They call you multiple times a day asking or demanding for things. How do you resolve that? Well, you tell them what the ground rules are. And if they don't follow the ground rules, then recommend another surveyor take over their survey and send them on their way. Because, you set the ground rules, they can either follow them or not. Now, the second type of client is the client who questions every bill or who does not pay their invoices on time. This is not an issue of communication or frustration. It's really just an issue of money. Because a lot of people don't have a lot of cash flow and or they could feel like you're taking advantage of them. And that would just make me sick to have a client think I'm overbilling them or you're taking advantage of them, because they deserve a great survey at a fair price. So how do you deal with this? Well, the first is the client who does not pay on time. And my recommendation would obviously have a written contract and invoice the client at a certain amount of time, like once a month, as this survey goes on. And then you should always have a written billing policy. 15 days, an email is sent. 30 days, a phone call is sent. 45 days, a more terse email is sent. 60 days, a more terse phone call is given, and all work stops on the project. At 90 days, the client is dropped and they get reported to collections. It's simple because there's no personality, there's no favoritism. Step by step, this is how it progresses, and that's the company policy. I'm sorry. Similarly, what about a client who questions your bills? Now, I have absolutely no problems with clients asking questions about their individual invoices. In fact, I encourage this open communication because I want the client to feel like they're getting a great product at a fair price, always. But oftentimes the client says, oh, can't you take off an hour here or an hour there? And absolutely not. You have to explain the value of your product, and you have to have the client appreciate that if they want a good service, they're going to have to pay a reasonable price. Now, I have a certain limit, like 2 or 3, invoices where they want to ask for hours off. And after 2 or 3, requests for discount, I typically go ahead and refer that client to a new surveyor and send them off to find a new expert or new surveyor, because obviously either they do not appreciate what you're doing for them or they just don't have the money to pay for your time. Either way, it is unfair to put that client in the position. So sometimes you have to send them off and help them find a better fit for their survey. And that can be kind of harsh sometimes, but you don't want an unhappy client. And if a client isn't happy, then they shouldn't be a client. Finally, we've got clients who want to dictate what type of work you're doing. Did a survey, gentleman wanted a 20-acre parcel subdivided into a couple of lots, one lot for his in-laws, one lot for him, one lot for the common area or some farming, whatever. Well, he changed his mind about how he wanted these lots moved around several times, and as long as he understood there was an extra time and charge involved in that, no problem. I'm glad to do it. But again, had another client, similar situation. He wanted his lots in a certain orientation, dimension, that did not conform with the local ordinances. So the local planning board would have been very displeased with the work I did because it would not meet their minimum requirements. And I had to tell this client, I know what you want, but you can't have it because it is not in conformance of the local code. And he was just demanding that this work be done like he wanted it. What happened? Well, at that point, I went ahead, stopped all the work, and referred him to a different surveyor because, you have to be reasonable. You have to sit down, show the client the rules, and explain to them what you can do and what you cannot do. And if they demand that you do the latter, what you cannot do, either ethically or in the professional responsibility legally, then you have a client who you just can't work with. So in this video, we talked about 3 difficult clients. The client who calls you all the time, and you should communicate your, ground rules to them. The client who has a hard time paying or who questions your bills, be totally upfront. Tell them what you did. Always bill fairly. I take a few hours off the invoice anyways, But if the client continues on, it may be time to refer the client to another survey. And third, the client who asks you to do things that are not legally permissible or within the standard of practice of surveying. And in that case, you just have to calmly explain those standards and make sure you always stay on the right side of the law and the regulations. I know it's taken me many years to kind of get a game plan for each of these three, and I hope this video helps you resolve your own conflicts with clients or other lay people. Thanks for watching.